welcome to folks who are joining or with us, and to anyone watching this later. My name is Jenny Smith-Camejo. I am the Communications Director for Positive Women's Network USA. We're a national membership organization of women living with HIV. And this is the 7th edition of our PWNCares series by and for women living with HIV. This is a project that is supported by VIV's Positive Action for Women grant. And it's basically what we did. We took the question, when you were first diagnosed, what are some things that you would have wanted to know about or hear about from other women living with HIV? We took this question to our communications action team of members, all women living with HIV. Threw that question out there. We got lots and lots of great responses. The topic we're discussing today is one of the ones that has come up the most frequently, and it's about advocating for yourself, especially in the context of healthcare. You know, it's a lot of folks feel like they don't have, that they're not able to talk with their doctors or other healthcare providers about things that they want or need in terms of their treatment or options for managing their care. And so this is sort of just sharing how some of our panelists here, who are also in the video, how they have found ways to communicate their needs and to get their needs met. And so hopefully this will be helpful for anyone who's with us today or watching later. And I think it could also be really useful for providers to actually hear this directly from folks living with HIV, what's needed and the ways that some of these barriers can be addressed. So I'm really excited to be with these fabulous panelists today and to be able to premiere the video. And so real quick, I'm gonna do a real quick housekeeping, and then I'm gonna allow the panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll watch the video, and then we're gonna open it up for questions after that. So quick housekeeping is just that once we open the floor for questions, or even before, if, for example, if you're watching the video and you have a question for one of the panelists, please use the Q&A box. There at the bottom of your screen, there's a black bar, and you'll see the Q&A box. Put the question in the Q&A box rather than the chat box, if you would. Because sometimes the chat box starts moving pretty quickly and it can be hard for me to actually find all the questions. But if you put them in the Q&A box, I'll see it, and then we'll try to make sure that all the questions get answered. So that's the number one thing, is just make sure questions or anything that you would like for me to read out loud for folks should go in the Q&A box. If you want to chit chat with each other in the chat box, please feel free to do that. And also this is being recorded. However, if you're communicating through the Q&A box or the chat box, your name is not going to show up anywhere on a recording. So don't worry about confidentiality or anything like that. If instead of using the Q&A box, you would rather speak and ask a question, you can raise your hand, and I can promote you to a panelist, which just means it'll allow you to speak out loud. I have no problem doing that, but please do be aware that if you do that, your name will be recorded, and if you're on video, that will be recorded as well. So if you're concerned about confidentiality, please just go ahead and use the Q&A box rather than trying to speak out loud. And I think that is it. So actually, before we I'm going to let the presenters introduce themselves first, and then I'm going to do the poll question. And I'm not sure unfortunately, I'm not sure if Keiva is going to be able to join us today. She's in Hawaii. It's really early over there, so I'm not totally sure if she's going to be able to make it. If she does, that's fantastic. If not, we will miss her. So I'm just going to go in the order that I see folks. So Tranisha, can you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tranisha Arzah. I'm based in Seattle, Washington. I formerly was a peer advocate at Babes Network, YWCA. I'm also a PWN board member. And right now I'm an HIV STI tester, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. And Alicia?
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We appreciate you being on here. So I'm Alicia Diggs, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I live in North Carolina currently. I represent North Carolina. I am currently the North Carolina State Lead for PWN. I'm an advocate. I do a whole bunch. I love life. I love you all, and just happy to be here. Oh, I'm also a case manager, so I'm currently in my office.
Thank you. And Kamaria.
Hi, everybody. This is Kamaria. I live in Winter Haven, Florida. And yeah, so I work for the Seattle Project, and I'm a proud Policy Fellow member. And I feel like I need to give a disclaimer for the video, if you don't mind, for myself personally. If you have only seen me be quiet, then you've never had the pleasure of seeing me be upset, which is great. And I'm going to talk about this in the video. But if you see me upset, that means you weren't listening when I was quiet. So I'll explain more later.
Thank you. Tiami, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiami Luckett, based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. I am PWNUSA Communications Assistant / Block Project Coordinator. Really happy to actually showcase this video. This one really touched me, and you guys are really in for a treat. We have some amazing presenters, and just listen to what they share, because I'm sure that all of us have felt that at some point. But I'm not actually on the webinar, so I'm going to black out. I'm here as support staff.
Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot there. And so we are going to show the video in just 1 second. But real quick, I wanted to start off with a poll question. So just so that we get a snapshot of who's in the room today. And please know that this is anonymous, so no one's going to know who said what. The first question is, how long have you been living with HIV? So the time since your diagnosis specifically. I'll give you just a minute to answer. Just a couple more seconds. All right, so it looks like we've got some veterans here. We've got quite a few folks with more than 20 years, a number of folks 16 to 20 years, and then much fewer with 1 to 3 years. So that's just a quick snapshot of who's here today. Sorry, I got distracted. There's heavy rain that just started coming down. Hopefully it's not going to do anything with my electricity or internet. All right, so I would like for us to go ahead and show the video. I'm super excited for folks to see it. I am actually going to pull up the, see which version I want to use. Let's use the Vimeo version. 1 sec. And I'm going to make sure I do it the right way with the sound coming through the computer, not through my speakers. Okay. Just 1 sec. Sorry, just 1 second.
All right, gotta love technology.
Just want to make sure I do it right, because I have done it wrong before a couple of times. So this should be the right way. All right. Can everyone see? Okay. And panelists, when I turn on the sound, if you don't hear, please let me know immediately, like out loud, because I won't be able to see the chat box on full screen.
didn't go to the doctor before I was living with HIV. I wasn't raised in a household where if something was wrong with you or if you were sick that you went to the doctor. You just took some tussin and kept it moving or whatever home remedy you could find.
You know, going to the doctor before I started transitioning, it was effortless. I didn't really have to think too much about it. It was just kind of like, you're going to the doctors. Going to the doctor after transitioning, there's always anxiety. I feel like I have to be extra on point in order to be presentable to a doctor. Whether it's about like body hair or whether it's about, you know, what I'm wearing or how I smell, or, it can give you a lot of anxiety, honestly. There are times even still today, you know, 25 years after transitioning, that sometimes if I don't feel up to it, I just skip the appointment. Like, I still do that to this day.
Oh gosh, I was always on it. Like I went to all of my healthcare appointments, all of my girly appointments. I call them girly appointments. I went to all of them. I was all about my health. I wanted to stay healthy, especially learning about, you know, STDs as a young teenager, a preteen, and, you know, a lot of people getting sick as I got older. And I was like, no, I'm sexually active. Give me any test that I need to have. So I welcomed it. I was never afraid of it because, you know, I had this attitude, I don't have anything. Nothing's wrong with me.
I'm someone who was born with HIV, so I've been going to doctors since as long as I can remember. There is very little guidance and support for young people living with HIV to transition into this adulthood, especially in this like medical care context system. There's no easy way to navigate something that you don't know what is going to happen or what it looks like. Learning how to advocate for yourself is a journey. You know, that's not something I just knew how to do right away.
After HIV, I think it was because for a long time, I didn't do what I was supposed to be doing for HIV. I wasn't taking my medications adherently. I wasn't getting lab work done. I wasn't following through with the things that my doctor had asked of me. And so, and it wasn't important to me. And so once I started doing those things and feeling like I was part of my healthcare, I think I had a lot less nervousness or anxiety about seeing the doctor.
I'm really bad at picking up my medications. It's been a issue with me. So there's all these other steps before you have to get the meds, and that was like too much for me. So I actually told my doctor and my case manager, like, hey, this is a problem. I'm noticing it. What can we do to fix this? And my medical case manager was like, let's see if we can mail the medications to you. And I didn't know that was an option, if I didn't have like mobility issues and other things. But it was an access problem for me, right? Now they're just there, they're available, and I could take my meds.
Once I got diagnosed and I'm like, okay, now I'm a person living with HIV, and I learned about the viral load and the CD4 and all of that. I was all about my numbers, all about, I want to be healthy, I want to live, I know it's not a death sentence. And then once I transitioned to taking meds 10 years after my diagnosis, it was like, how is this going to affect me? So yes, I'm going to make sure that all of my organs are functioning and these meds are not messing me up any kind of way. So yeah, it was never a problem from the very beginning. And I research before I go. So when I go, I have questions. And I will keep a little note in my phone. And, if I have a question, once they advance technology, I can email the doctor like, hey, when I come, I need you to answer these questions for me. So I was always on it, always. Yeah.
It's completely different now. I go every 6 months. I take, my medications, I do my labs, and And then having all types of different doctors, so seeing a specialty care physician on top of your primary care physician, and then a revolving door of clinics and nurses, and stressful. The energy it takes to build up to, one, make the appointment or verify the appointment and then get there and squeeze time in. It's just, sometimes you just don't even, well, I just don't even bother. So usually what I do to get me back on track is, I think about my long-term goals. I'm looking at, like, I want to be here and I want to remain undetectable. And even if I'm undetectable but I'm not taking care of myself, I can make all other things go out of whack. So I usually snap out of it after like a month or two. And then thankfully I have a medical team that, checks on me. And sometimes it's not even about like, hey, you haven't done your labs. It's mostly like, yeah, we had this event and we thought you'd be there. Are you okay? Type of thing. And I know that that's their way of just getting a conversation with me to see if I'll make an appointment. And I usually do. And we laugh it off and I show up.
What would happen is I get a cold, and once I got a cold, my glands would swell up, my tonsils would get inflamed, and this time the tonsils did not go down. They were so swollen that I could barely breathe. I couldn't eat. I couldn't really swallow. So I went to a doctor. He didn't really want to come near me and touch me because I was HIV positive, and he prescribed me the purple pill, which is Nexium. I went to my case manager and I told her, and I'm crying and I'm upset, and I'm like, I want him reported. And, they sent me somewhere else. And as soon as I got in, the love, the embrace, I felt comfortable. And I was on edge because I was like, oh gosh, I got to go through this again. And as soon as the doctor got to me, first of all, he could see it all up in my throat area. And then when he touched me, so that calmed me down because I was like, okay, he's all right. He was like, okay, we're going to schedule this for first thing tomorrow morning. They were so loving, and the way I felt before, they combated that with the opposite, with love. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you.
I was going through a lot of issues during those young formative years, and I didn't know how to explain it to her. When I did kind of tell her about some of the stuff I was going through, I got like these remarks about like, why can't you just take your treatment? Or, if you don't take your treatment, what will happen, right? She emailed me and said like, hey, if you don't come to see me, I will stop prescribing your medication. I told my peer advocate at the time about it, and they told me like, no, that's not okay. You should be able to not see her again, and hire a new provider who will have your back and will not threaten you ever again. And so I did schedule to see a new doctor, who's the person I'm seeing now.
And I remember going to a clinic and explaining to them, that I was HIV positive. And I felt like I was given an extra exam, like looking for cuts or open places of entry or places of exit, I guess maybe. My husband was waiting in the car, and he had actually called. And so I purposely answered the phone. Yeah, I just was like, oh, there's an emergency. I'm sorry, I have to go. I'll reschedule the appointment. I'll just give you a call later. And today, I wish I would have given them what they needed to hear for somebody else. But it just kind of baffles me that happens.
And I remember going into the office, I'd heard about people being on a 1-pill treatment. I was like, I want that. What do I need to do to get that? And the nurse at the time was like, well, you're on a treatment now. You're okay. You shouldn't switch right now. And I told her I wasn't leaving, and it was like 4:45. And I was like, I'm not leaving the clinic until you bring in my doctor and we have a real conversation. I get to choose what medicines I take. I made the comment that I was going to flip over the table if they didn't do it. And I had my hands like gripped to do it. And the nurse just kind of backed away. They listened to me. I hate that I had to get kind of aggressive because that's not really in my nature. It was pretty close to 6 o'clock before I left because there was just a lot of conversation. But they listened to me, and I walked out a happy woman.
So currently I have a great provider. We have a great relationship. What works with us is that she doesn't judge me, right? After I leave her, leave my appointment with her, it feels good. I'm like, yeah, I got some stuff accomplished. I'm going to work on some things, and she's going to work on some things. And she doesn't like have time limits with me. I always hear that doctors, sometimes I hear that they have like 30 minutes or 15 minutes with you, but I never feel like she has any other clients. You know, she's like always focused on me, and that's like super cool.
I was in a very, very abusive relationship, and I would go to the doctors with bruises and, you know, scrapes and scratches and black eyes, and I was homeless, and we were living out of a car, and I had my dog with me, and they would let me bring my dog to my appointments with me. And I think that they understood that that was the only way that I was going to show up. Like if I had to leave my dog locked up in a car in Hawaii, that wasn't going to happen. And so they kind of looked past the bruises and the scrapes. They looked past me bringing my dog into the doctor's office. You know, it just was really, she's here. We're thankful. Let's do what we need to do for this appointment. And that was that. And that was always important to me too. And it was probably the reason why that I kept coming back at that time. And I think when you feel that my health is really, really important to the clinic itself, like I'm not just a folder or a file or a number, you know, I think we need that in order to stay connected.
I had like my lymph node was swollen really, really bad. And a lump in my knowledge meant cancer. So I was just like, I just don't want it to be cancer. But I don't want you to test me to find out. And so this is an emergency room doctor. He sat down and he's like, talk to me. Like, what is it? Like, we need to run these tests. We need to figure out what this is. Then I started crying because I was like, I don't have insurance. And he's like, don't talk to me about what you don't have. Tell me what you need. And for a physician to sit down and say that, I was like, okay, so he actually cares. And I consider him like an angel because I went back to look for him and he was not there. And nobody knew who I was talking about except one nurse who I'm actually Facebook friends with now. I sought her out. So that was a really amazing experience. And that was the springboard of turning me back around to really focus on getting on my treatment.
I can say what has helped me feel really good and confident with my doctor or with my healthcare is because when I would go, they would remember whatever I told them last time. They wouldn't have notes. They wouldn't have my file or anything. They may, of course, have to look up, you know, things like blood work or what have you. But other than that, it's like, well, last time you were here, you said ... You were going through, and I'm like, oh, wow, you remember that. And it helped me build a relationship and a trust with them.
It means like taking back that power. When I didn't know how to be an advocate for myself, I felt really powerless. Now that I have practiced advocating, right, in very different ways and settings, I feel like I can take my life back. I feel like I can take control of the direction of where it's going.
My involvement and, understanding what advocacy looks like with PWN really, really helped. Listening to other women say, you're the expert, it's your body, you get to say what happens to it, and letting that become my truth. It means that I have a voice. It means that my voice matters. And then it also shows me that as long as I'm advocating for myself, that has an impact on my community, and that hopefully there's a ripple effect that other people realize, well, if Kamaria was able to get these resources for herself, that I can do it too. Or at the least, I can ask Kamaria to come with me and she'll flip over a table for me. I've offered, so.
Your peer can help encourage you and help empower you so that you can advocate for yourself. Because when you go to a health physician or anywhere and you speak your truth and you speak it in confidence, it just makes you feel stronger. It makes you feel empowered, and it causes you to heal from the inside out.
For me, that's what being an advocate really means, is that you're speaking up for the things that you need with no fear, and really helping your entire community at the same time without realizing it.
Wow, thank you guys so much for sharing. I think that's a really, really powerful video. And welcome, Keiva. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really happy you're here. Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing your experiences, both the good and the bad, and sort of what's helped you to overcome the bad ones and to help providers help you. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Before we open it up to questions, first, okay, one more poll question real quick. Since there was some talk about discrimination and judgment, I just wanted to ask the folks who are here today, have you ever felt judged or discriminated against by a healthcare provider because of any of these things, because of your HIV status, your sexual orientation or your sexuality, your gender or gender identity, your race or ethnicity, your socioeconomic status? So take just a second and let us know if you feel like you have been judged or discriminated against when you go to the doctor about any or all of those things. Take a couple more seconds. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll and share that. So it looks like there's 2 folks here who are fortunate enough to never have felt like they were judged or discriminated against in a healthcare setting. But then we see a whole bunch of folks who do feel like they face judgment or discrimination. A lot because of HIV status, 1 because of sexual orientation or sexuality, 6 because of gender or gender identity, 6 because of race or ethnicity, and 12 because of socioeconomic status. So wow. Yeah, we should never feel judged or discriminated against when we go to the doctor, but obviously this is a real thing. And so I'm looking forward to being able to talk about it and share what's kind of worked for other people. Before we open up to questions, I would just wanted to give the panelists an opportunity. If you had anything that you wanted to add about the video or any context you want to give for anything you said in the video, this is optional, but I want to give you the opportunity to say anything you'd like to say before we start taking questions. So feel free to come off mute if you have anything you'd like to add.
Hello, everyone. I do want to add, it is not okay to not be heard. It is not okay for your physician, for your nurse, for your case manager, for whomever to not listen to you when you have a problem, when you have a concern, when you have a pain, whatever it is not okay for people to not listen to you. Make sure that you're heard. Not by any means, don't flip over a table. I thought it was funny. I mean, you could probably get something done doing it. I mean, I think I would, but no, but seriously, get with someone who can be your support system. Never, never walk away without your questions answered. Never walk away without anything that you need, because you are important. And a lot of us don't realize that. A lot of us don't believe that. Please make sure that you are respected and find a way to get that done.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else like to add anything?
I mean, I will, since I was called out, but no, I love you, Alicia. I didn't actually flip over the table, but it was just the fact that my rage is quiet, and I was there, and it was the end of the day. I was just as tired as they were, and I asked a simple question about switching my treatment because I was struggling with taking 3 pills a day. And I already had the voices in my head from hearing other people saying how far we've come in medical advances and how it used to be 12 pills twice a day, and you had to know what you were eating first. And I get that, but that's not my situation. I'm taking these 3 and they're hard. And if I have the option to take 1, I want the 1. Let's make it happen. So it was just the fact that they weren't listening to me. And yeah, I was more I was holding onto the table to restrain myself, but I was going to flip it over. And that is a phrase I use to encourage other people when they tell me they're experiencing something at our providers. And let me also add that I live in a very rural town. Like landmass, it's the largest county in the state, but we only have the health department. We don't have an ASO or a CBO, community-based organization or AIDS service organization that focuses on providing services for people living with HIV only. So we have to go to the health department, or you're a general practitioner, like your private care. And a lot of people don't want to talk about HIV outside of those spaces. So it's really difficult to find a doctor you can trust. And I just felt that I wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll add something. So it's important, jumping off what Alicia said, it's not only important that our voices are being heard, but it's also important that these providers and people in the medical health industries, that they see us as whole people. You know, that was a big issue with me not having great relationships with people, with providers, was that they often would neglect my other issues. They wouldn't see that there were other things that were pressing onto me that were causing a lot of stress, that were not allowing me to take my medications, and they didn't want to ask about those things. And I didn't know how to really bring those things up. And so it's just important that people understand that we are complicated people, that we're whole people, that there's so many other things other than HIV that should be included in the conversation. That's all.
And I wanted to say, good morning, everyone. My name's Keiva. I kind of came in a little bit late. I wanted to say that, you know, we always hear that we are the subject matter experts, and our experiences is our research. But I also think that it's important today, as an advocate for ourselves, that we really kind of know what we need. Understanding the different medications, understanding what HIV looks like today. And we do that by having conversations in our community. And just in the past couple of years, I've learned so much more about HIV in conversations like these, and in my network of friends that are HIV support providers and care providers, that I didn't learn from my own doctor. And I'm so much more able to have a productive conversation with my doctor or with his staff, because not only do I have my lived experience as a person living with HIV, but I also have the research now. I also have the facts and other stories from my community that really help me to kind of understand what I really, really need from my providers. So I think that that's the part too that we really have to make sure that we're focusing on, as well, is that not only our lived experiences is our research, but also, like, we actually do the work and research some things for ourselves as well.
Thank you. That's a really important point. And we also know just that yeah, like you mentioned, doctors don't always tell you everything, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many women living with HIV that I've talked to whose healthcare providers never told them about U equals U or anything. Not even in in those words, but even just the fact that they would not be able to transmit HIV if they were undetectable. Very few, I know very few people whose doctors actually did tell them that. So that's just one example. Doctors don't share everything. So yeah, definitely it's good to have those conversations, do your own research before you go into the doctor, so that you can really advocate for yourself even better. So thank you all so much. So we will open it up to questions. Do please use the Q&A box rather than the chat box for asking questions. It'll be a lot easier for me to keep up with. I see Tana has her hand raised. I'm going to let her speak if she still wants to. Tana, did you have a question?
And if so, Tana, you're on mute.
Okay, I don't see. Oh, there.
She may have had to walk away or something.
Yeah, she may have. That's fine.
Hey, this is me. This is Tana. You know, it's important for us to be who we are. And no one should tell you, I don't care if they're professional or not. We are strong women. And I enjoyed y'all presentation. I'll go back on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a question here. We talk about the here, I'm gonna. Okay. So I have a question. We talk about the medical doctor, but has anyone had problems with dentists? That's an interesting question. Yes, anyone who would like to answer, please go ahead.
Recently I live in Hawaii, and we are a melting pot of different cultures and different ethnicities, and I needed to do a root canal. Like this is just recent, like within the last 6 months. And my one of my coworkers, who is an HIV case manager, she gave me the number to a doctor that was willing to accept payments for the work that needed to get done. And when I went to the doctor, to that dentist, I immediately realized that it was kind of like a community dentist, meaning that they really, in Hawaii, it's kind of very segregated by culture. And so she was really a provider for her own demographic. And so I know when I walked in, I instantly was kind of a little bit apprehensive, and I was a little bit nervous. And so I'm filling out the paperwork about, current medical, issues and whatnot. And I hesitated to put that I was HIV positive because I didn't know what was going to come next. But I put it in anyways. And it was an issue. It was a big issue. And I kept answering questions about the one specific thing, the HIV. I just kept answering same, different questions that she was asking me or that her staff was asking me. And finally, I had just told them, I came here for this. And I made sure that I did something respectfully and was hopefully going to be able to teach them something that day. But I made sure that I made them realize that, one, they were making me very uncomfortable because of the conversation. Two, that it was a private conversation that shouldn't be had for other of their patients to hear. And three, that it was irrelevant to the service that I was getting, and there was no need for them to ask me the questions that they were asking me. And I ended up not getting the root canal from them, but I feel like that I walked away with a little bit of my power, because I made sure that what I was saying in there was something that hopefully she went home and did her reading, or her staff, developed some protocol around working with people that are living with HIV. But yeah, it was an issue. And I think that dentists are probably even more so quick to be stigmatized, because they don't have the opportunity as often as, say, medical providers do or doctors do to have those conversations about modernized HIV treatment and care.
Thank you.
I recall in the past, before I go, the current dentist I have no problem with, but before, I recall where I was hesitant about putting it on the information sheet, because I was like, if they know, they're going to judge me. They're not even going to want to service me. And right now I need some assistance, so I'm not even going to say anything. And, over time, I just really started to feel uncomfortable not saying anything. So, you know, where I get my ID care at now, they also have Ryan White services for the dentist. So I go there and they do very well. And I appreciate that. I've been going to them for years and I get everything done. I needed them to save a tooth because I smile too much. And this one tooth was acting out. And I said, no, y'all need to fix that and keep that in there. So they did 5 root canals on one tooth and they kept my tooth. And see, but no, just seriously, it's sad that in the beginning I didn't want to say anything due to the stigma, due to the rejection. And after finding out my voice and feeling a little bit of security within myself, I was then able to stand up for my rights and say, you know what, forget you. Yes, I'm going to give you a teaching moment. And if you get it, great. If you don't, that's on you. I already planted my seed and I'm out of here. So it does take a lot of strength to be able to do that. And I commend you, Keiva.
I think that Alicia made a really good point, and there's a lot of places or HIV social services providers that can connect us to dentists that, you know, accept Ryan White as a form of payment, and that, in my experiences as a professional, that seems to have been helpful to a lot of the clients that we work with here in Hawaii, that we send them to. Really, there's 3 specific dentists that work with a lot of our HIV positive clients, and I think that that's a really good point that Alicia made, is that they have more than likely been seasoned with working with our community. And so they're not so nervous, usually.
Thank you both so much. Do either of our other panelists have anything to say about dentists or any other type of doctor, perhaps, who's not HIV specific? Do you feel like you have to tell doctors, or do you kind of treat it as case by case, optional?
And this is Kamaria. So I didn't answer the dentist question because I haven't been to the dentist in a minute. But I do remember when I needed my wisdom teeth pulled, I was really nervous. So I didn't disclose because I was in a lot of pain and I didn't want my disclosure to keep them from treating me because I didn't have insurance at the time and I was in a lot of pain. So I chose not to tell the dentist. And then I think, like, I don't know, I didn't realize that I still had a little bit of that fear in me. So I guess it's like a case by case, because like my OBGYN, I tell them like with no problem. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud, but yeah, for me, it's a case by case type of situation. And I really never thought about that till just now.
Somebody put in the Q&A box, it is your choice to tell the dentist. Someone knowing your status is a privilege.
Yeah, that's very true.
Thank you. So here's another one. As a medical provider, mostly working in medical care management, I work with my clients as a whole person. However, I have clients that will refuse to get blood work done. And once we get to upwards of a year without labs or communication with them, the doctor I work with will tell them that they are at risk of not getting a refill because we need to check on kidneys and liver and such. So that was a comment.
I think that, so here in Hawaii, I work at a place called the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, HHHRC. And I really think that harm reduction is an incredible tool for any social service providers, any medical providers. When you're working with, you know, social determinants of health. Harm reduction is really meeting the client where they're at. And we've worked really hard here in Hawaii to have close conversations with our medical providers that work with the clients that we serve, in helping them to understand that many times HIV is the very last thing on our participants list, or getting their labs done when they feel great is the very last thing on our participants list. And really kind of working with the whole client and not just focusing on treating HIV or focusing on writing their prescriptions or whatever the services that they need at that time. We really kind of are looking at how difficult is it for this person to get their lab works done, and how do we work around that for them? How difficult is it for this person to get to their appointment, and how do we make it possible for them? I think that so often, more often than not, we're accommodating the provider, and it's not making any sense. And when we started kind of introducing these concepts of harm reduction and understanding our clients' needs and understanding our participants' needs, and serving them first and making it more molded for their lives and their choices and their lifestyle at this time, they were much more what we call adherent to their treatment, to the services that they needed. They're much more quicker to be approachable we were much more quicker to be approachable by them, because they knew that whatever they were doing, that we didn't really care. We just wanted to make sure that they had what they needed. And I think that harm reduction is something that we don't talk about enough in these circles, because it's what kept me connected to services when I wasn't able to fend for myself at one time. So yeah, tell your people about harm reduction.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That harm reduction is super important, and PWN actually we want to put a lot more focus on that, because you're absolutely right, it does not get enough attention. Thank you for pointing that out.
I wanted to add in regards to that comment from the physician. So I know someone who is in care, and they've been missing appointments and things like that. And they said, well, I've been taking my meds, but I don't like those needles. And as soon as they mention labs, I just leave. So what I did, and this is, it's personal for everybody. So what I did for this person was I suggested, I, of course, scheduled an appointment for them and suggested I'll go with them to their labs, to the lab office to make sure that they get that done. And I'll sit with them. And it honestly reassured that person. It was like, really? Okay, cool. Now, everybody cannot do that. I totally understand it. But that's where advocates and peer advocates and all of that come into play. And, at the doctor's office, ID clinic, what have you, your navigators, your nurses, anybody who has the connection or the referral for that person, find ways to help them feel comfortable so that they are able to stay adherent, so they are able to feel comfortable when they go to the office. No, I can't do that for everybody, but that it came up on my heart so big, because I see great things for this person and I want them to stay healthy. And again, I can't do it for everybody, but if I got one, I did my job.
Thank you, Alicia. Great. I have a question here. So although I'm a seasoned advocate, sometimes if I'm not feeling well and I go to the doctor or emergency room, I don't feel like being an advocate. I just want to be taken care of the right way. And there have been times that they've done stigmatizing things and I feel defeated because I let them get away with it. Do you all think it would be helpful to follow up afterwards, or how would you handle afterwards? It's a great question.
I think that's an awesome question. I 1000% can relate to the times I've been to the doctor. I'm just like, I'm not the advocate today. Do your damn job. Sorry. But I'm just, as I don't know how to answer that. I just think it's an awesome question though. So I'm really hoping one of our wise elders in the community has some advice for that, because I've often asked myself as well, like when I get home and I'm feeling better, like dang, that might have been my moment where I should have been educating, so the next person that comes in doesn't feel stigmatized. And you know, that's an awesome question.
So yeah, I'm gonna quickly comment because I don't want to comment too much. But in regards to that, yes, I mean you're a person. After the titles, after the labels, and all of that, you're a person with feelings. And yeah, there are times that I have to switch a hat really quick, and I just want to be me. I just want to be me. So in a situation like that, just to respond to the question, um, I would probably, depending on how I felt that day, if it was one of those days, like let me get in, help me take care of whatever I'm here for, and let's keep it moving. Later on, I would then give feedback, like, you know, this is how I felt, this is how you made me feel, and here's the suggestion on how you can change your atmosphere to make it safer and better for the next person. So it really just depends on how I will feel that day. But if I'm going in as please let me be me, I'll get back to them later.
Yeah. So here's I had to leave a provider because I used to have migraine headaches, but every time I brought up the issue, he would say it has nothing to do with HIV and never offered any solution or referral. Have folks had similar situations with doctors?
I can think of a few different situations where there was something that I needed from my doctor, and they didn't think it was necessary, or they didn't think that it was something for discussion at this time. And I disagree with that. You have every right to get your concerns or your needs, you know, addressed. So I feel like you did the right thing by finding a new doctor. I would suggest to everyone though, because I made this mistake and it cost me a month off of medication, to really have a plan. You know, when you're planning to leave your doctor, or you're planning to leave the whatever medical provider there is, really have your plan. Because I was without meds for a whole month because I didn't really make a plan after having a fit. So and so that led to the first time I ever had a viral load in like 7 years, and it was really scary. Especially in a serodiscordant relationship, it can be scary. But I think that we have to remember that our medical providers and our case managers and patient navigators and all of those, they work for us. They're paid there because they're there to provide services for us. We're not there, and we're not as, you know, it is a privilege to have medical care, but it also is a privilege to have patients. And so I think that we have every right to say what we need and when we need it and how we need it, because I believe that everything is HIV related. HIV plays a factor in how I do my, you know, gender affirming procedures. HIV plays a factor in how I'm going to feel about taking my meds that day. And it plays a factor in if I'm going to go to work today. You know, it's all relevant. And for a doctor to say that, you know, that really doesn't have anything to do with it. One, I believe that he's wrong, that your migraines were not related. But I also believe that we deserve to have our points heard. And we have the responsibility to find those providers that are going to hear them and make us feel validated and make our feelings and our needs validated. So you did the right thing, but make sure you have a plan when you're walking out of that doctor's office and planning on not coming back. you know, make sure you have another doctor to go to, because in some parts of this country, unfortunately, the resources are very limited.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Keiva. I thought was actually a question that that I have for folks was, in places where maybe you don't have a lot of choices for doctors, like what are the options if you are, you know, in a position with a doctor where it's just not clicking for whatever reason, where it's not working out? Like, are there ways to, I mean, like, any ideas what someone should try to do in that situation?
This is Tranisha. Well, what I did, because I did have to leave a provider before I had the one I had right now. And what I did, I mentioned in the video, is I went to, because sometimes we don't feel like advocating for ourselves, right? So we need to find support and find people who will have our back, and we can use as a soundboard to talk about what happened and how that made me feel and what to do, what those next steps might be. So can be like a strategizing thing that you can do. Because oftentimes I will not follow up with a provider or some social worker or someone in the medical field about some type of discrimination that I faced or about not being heard. And so I will, luckily there's people here in my community that I can go to that might do that for me, or that will go with me, or will tell me, okay, well, let's figure out something else. Let's just get you out of that situation, but make sure that you have everything in place before, so that you don't, you know, end up out of care, because it's always about you, right? You want to make sure that you're in a situation that you get everything that you need, even if you have to go change a doctor and go through that whole process again, which it can be very tiring. It's exhausting to have to find another provider and go through the whole chit chat again and figure out who this person is and if you can trust them. But at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you're being heard, you need to make a big change.
This is Kamaria. I just wanted to add to that. It wasn't, so I had a nurse that she did something pretty horrible like recently. And I'm at my health department. Pretty much everybody there knows me except this one nurse. And I hadn't been taking my treatment because my insurance was being ridiculous about me switching the brand. And I heard her in the hallway talking to another nurse about why she doesn't understand how I can be an advocate and not take my pills every day like I'm supposed to. And I just sat there and I was like, that's really interesting that I can hear you. That means other people can hear you. And so I waited till she came back in and I didn't say anything to her. And I was like, waiting for the doctor. So when my doctor came in, I let her know what happened. And I said, I'm requesting that she not be my nurse anymore, that when I come in, I don't set eyes on her. And didn't say it as nice as I'm saying it now, but I don't have a lot of tolerance for like just flat out rudeness. And she later, fast forwarding to me, also my second step strategy was I joined their like community advisory group to address other problems I'd heard that were happening in the clinic. And I was like, well, if I need to be at the table to address this instead of just telling my doctor, because I can't always rely on my doctor or my provider to fix it. Maybe there's other pieces of red tape I have to cut through. So I remember sitting at that meeting and she came in during one of my like rants, I guess. And like the look on her face, like when she realized like, yeah, I do this work and it does mean something. I wasn't just saying I was an advocate just to say it. She's since apologized to me profusely, but it's frustrating because it shouldn't have to take that. It shouldn't have to take anybody getting upset for somebody to do what's right when I feel like you've been trained to do what's right on how to treat people. So in answering that question, like my strategy was to first let somebody I trusted know the situation, and then I figured out a way to get involved with, I guess, the troubleshooting piece of the group of people that can handle the situation. And actually, unfortunately, I'm still dissatisfied. I'm not high maintenance, y'all. I'm tired of my county, and I've been going there for 15 years. I'm now gonna just take it upon myself to drive 45 minutes to another doctor because I'm over it, and I'm tired of not having options because the doctors they do get leave. Like, they're maybe there for 6 months. One of them was commuting an hour and a half every morning to get to our clinic, and you're on time for your appointment, and you're sitting there like, okay, I guess I'm spending the day here at the clinic. So it's super frustrating, and I'm sad actually because everybody doesn't have that option to drive 45 minutes to their doctor. Many people are just stuck dealing with the department, and I'm tired. Like, in this phase, I don't know what else to do. So I'm gonna take care of Kamaria first, and then figure out what else I can do for this county. So yeah, I didn't mean to vent on that part, but that was my response: is that find somebody you trust, and then find a strategic way around becoming part of the troubleshooting.
I just to piggyback off of what Kamaria said, I really appreciate that you joined the Community Advisory Board, and I think that it's important that we remember that these clinics and these places that provide us services, they also get a lot of federal dollars, and so with that, they have a responsibility to provide the service the way that it's recommended by the federal government, by Ryan White administrators of that state. And so I know from working with other clients in our organization, they've actually had to write to the Ryan White administrator for that area. So that's some feedback I'd like to share with Kamaria and anybody else who is interested. Like, please know that there is Ryan White administrators for counties and for the states across the country. And these clinics are using Ryan White dollars to provide to provide us our care. And these are things that the administrator needs to be able to hear so that they can season those services better for us. And so, yeah, write those. That's being an advocate, and doing that for ourselves. Like we said in the video, it's a ripple effect that will really help our network and our community. Hold them accountable. They're using those dollars that are meant for us. So hold them accountable, and find out who the Ryan White administrator is in your county or your state. It might be different. In Hawaii, we just have one administrator for the entire state, but we're a small state. And so find out who those Ryan White administrators are. It's usually an HIV services provider organization. And let them know and hold these places accountable for what they're doing.
That's great. Thank you so much. It looks like Ebony has her hand raised. Ebony, if you would like to talk, you are unmuted.
Hi. Can you hear me and not sing? Oh, can you hear me? Okay, cool. I was just going to say to the question about having a provider who says a headache is not had nothing to do with your health and wouldn't figure out what it was. I know people have different insurances, and different insurances allow different things, and sometimes we're only using Ryan White. But if you have the option, I think working in a hospital taught me that HIV care specialists a lot of times just specialize in that. And although they should know about the whole body, and I'm sure they do, a lot of times if they're not, that's not what they're not focused on anything else. So it's important to have, if you can, a primary care provider who kind of just focuses on your primary care, and an HIV provider if you are available and able to have that, because a lot of times your primary care provider will pay attention to things that your HIV provider won't. The HIV provider a lot of times, unfortunately, is only worried about what your CD4 and viral load numbers are. And as I think Keiva said, HIV does everything has to do with, when you're living with HIV, everything has to do with HIV, because when you're sick, you're just worried that it's something about the HIV. So they should definitely take that into account. But if you are able to get a primary care provider as well as an HIV provider, because they will focus on other things. Second comment I wanted to make real quick is I've heard a few people, one of the questions we're talking about, like we've used the word threatening. And I just want to say, when you threaten clients, and I get it that you need clients to do things that in order to best care for your health, but when you threaten clients, that's a form of violence to me. And when I worked in the hospital, I had to teach our providers and some of the case managers that that's a form of violence, and some people are only used to that. But you can offer options. You can discuss consequences without threatening something. A lot of times you have to just have a conversation. If somebody's not doing something, there's a reason they're not doing it. They're not taking labs, if they're not taking their medicine, there's a bottom line reason. And sometimes you just have to talk, or you have to find somebody that they'll trust to talk to find out what their reason is. But threatening is a form of violence. And if we are to implement trauma-informed care, we can't threaten for anything. We have to offer those options or consequences in a way that's not threatening. Thanks.
Thank you, Ebony.
Can I respond?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tranisha. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ebony, for saying that. That's just like, ooh. Yeah, I was one of the people that used the word threatening in the video. And it was definitely felt very violent to me. It was scary. I was already scared. I already had a lot of anxiety because I didn't have a trusting relationship with this provider. I was much younger, and I didn't use my voice a lot, and I still have issues doing that because that's part of my trauma. And so this person didn't want to understand what was going on with me. So what I do is I avoid and I stop all contact with people, and that's what happened. And she threatened me, and that's not okay. You know, like you were saying, it's just not okay. If you need to reach someone or understand what's going on, you don't threaten someone. And also what works with my provider now today is that she is my primary doctor, and she's also my HIV specialist. And that is what I feel really lucky that I have her to look at my care, to look at me as a whole person, because she has these conversations that I need to have that are not always pin focused about HIV, but it's all related to HIV really. And so I'm just glad that you talked about those points.
Thank you, ladies, for your comments. In regards to, I'm kind of pinpointing the word threaten because it is scary, and I know I'll just speak personally. So the example that I used earlier in assisting one of my persons with going to get their labs, my option could have been, well, based on our rights and responsibilities, or based on your rights and responsibilities with us, these are some of the requirements. Instead of going that route, it's really based on your wording. It's based on how, to me, it's just based on how you come out at a person. In their situation, okay, to say, well, I'm not going to service you if you don't go to the doctor. I'm not going to service you if you don't take your meds. That's something that personally, me working in this field, I don't do. I don't say it that way. I'll try other alternatives to try to make them feel comfortable, and my key is always comfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, you're not trying to be in that situation. So I do everything that I can and everything in my ability to kind of make them feel comfortable, so that they understand their worth and what it is they deserve, and what's for them. And I know a lot of it has to do with me being a person that was on the other side of the desk, and, you know, being an out person who speaks up I was never that person when I was younger. And now that I am, when I see disservices, I can't help but to speak up. So when it comes to that, I try not to come across as threatening. So all of this to say, my suggestions to those who are working in the field and working with those of us who are living with HIV, always try to get in that person's shoes. And I know that we're quick and we're limited with time on everything, but that person is very important at that moment. And you have to get that time, and you have to try to think, what if this is you? What if you were the one going through this? And try to get rid of the titles and all the accolades and all that other stuff, and see people as people. But again, all of this to say, it's all about how you word things to people who are receiving care.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And this is, I feel like the video and this recording are going to be valuable tools also for providers, because some of this is not necessarily things that people have a lot of training in, and obviously they don't all have a lot of skill in it. So hopefully care providers who are interested in, improving retention and care, engagement and care, can use some of this feedback from the video and from this webinar to improve the way that they are talking to their patients and the way that they're treating people who walk through their doors. Because obviously, if you want people to stay engaged in care, they need to feel comfortable. They need to feel like they can trust you. They need to feel like there's a relationship where they can work with you. Which is actually, I wanted to do one more poll question, which was about how actually, wait, which one do I want to do? Yes, how satisfied folks are with their doctors, because I'm hearing a lot of different stuff. So how are you currently satisfied with the care that you receive from the doctors or providers that you see most often? This could be HIV doctors, but it could also be primary care doctors or gynecologists or any doctors that you see on a fairly regular basis. So it could be, yes, I'm happy with them somewhat, they're okay, but could be better. No, I'm not satisfied with my current providers, or I do not go to a doctor regularly at this time. Give just a few seconds to answer. So it looks like, fortunately, it looks like most folks who are here, at least who answered the poll, are happy with their providers. It looks like there are a few people who feel like it could be a little bit better. Maybe some of these providers need to hear some feedback on how they can improve, and one person who is not satisfied with their providers. And so I wanted to, so another question is, and you all did touch on this in the video, but what do you think is, if you had to say, what is the #1 most important thing that a provider can do to make you want to continue coming back and seeing that provider and working with them? The #1 thing that they could do, or the #1 thing that they should not do, either one.
When I was watching the video, something that Tranisha said really rung out to me, and it was the part where she was talking about the amount of time that a doctor spends with the patient. And recently I was going through some personal stuff and had really, I mean, for me, everything to do with my health, but wasn't really directly about my physical health. It was more of my, my emotional and my mental health. And my doctor, my HIV doctor, picked up on a few things. He picked up on the way that I was answering questions, which was outside of my personality. And he picked up on some facial expressions, and ended up sitting with me in in the room for about 30 minutes having a conversation about my mental health and my emotional stability. And that was really, really, really important to me. I feel like when a doctor or their staff is like rushing me through, like we only have 10 minutes we have a 10-minute appointment for you. I don't care if I've been living with HIV for 15 years or for 5 days. I want to know that my providers are willing to spend that time with me to make me walk out of that appointment feeling like I accomplished something, or that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to be proactive about HIV, or whatever the case may be. I think time is a really, really, really important thing that we need to see that I need to see from my provider. I want to know that he's not rushing me through, and I want to know that he's making sure that when we're done, that I have my questions answered, that I feel confident about what just happened, and that I can move on. So I'm so happy that Tranisha brought that up in the video, because I think that is a really, really, really important part of a doctor and a patient relationship is time.
I will say, number one, time, definitely, like you ladies said, but pay attention. Don't make your patients feel as if you're interrupting they're interrupting your time in your day, like we're doing you a favor by coming in. Don't just definitely pay attention and listen. And someone put in the chat box, listen to my recommendations. Like, seriously listen, and don't dismiss. And I understand physicians, people in the healthcare field, they're human and they go through things too, and somebody could be having a bad day. I get it, but you chose this type of job. You chose this career, not me. I didn't knock on your forehead and say, do this. This is what you chose. And working in this type of environment, you just have to carry yourself a certain way, because somebody could come in, and this is not, a slander or a fuss at physicians, but it's very important for physicians to hear what we're talking about today. That person coming in for their routine checkup could be suicidal. That person coming in for their routine checkup could feel like, if they don't help me today, and if they dismiss me today, forget this care, and I don't care what happens to me. So your attitude, that definitely plays a huge role in somebody's care. So my thing, I'm long-winded, I always keep talking too long, but listen, please listen and pay attention. And if you're having a bad day, take a moment, go into the bathroom, throw some water on, take a deep breath, count to 10, something, do whatever it is you need to do to make sure that you keep that person.
This is Tranisha. For me, all those things are really, really important. Time is really important. Feeling as if I'm valuable, right? That my time is valuable, that my lived experience is valuable, but most importantly, my provider doesn't hold back options and information from me. We talk about everything, she's like, okay, let's work around this. Let me share this to you. And that's super, it feels really great that I know that I can feel like I can trust her, and that she trusted me with that information, and that we together are working. It feels like a partnership. We're working together. This is a genuine, trusting, lasting relationship, I hope, for a long time. And so that's why I wanted to feel like. I want to leave that appointment feeling less anxious, as someone who is chronically anxious all the time. I need to feel like I can breathe after the appointment, and that what I'm doing is I'm on the right path, right? and that I might have some mistakes, some bumps in the road, and but she's not going to judge me for those things, and she has my back, really.
And this is Kamaria. I'm gonna co-sign on everything that everyone just said, and even add like some self-accountability from that, for the phase of my medical care I'm in right now. So y'all excuse me facial expressions. My dog is loose and my kid just got home from school and they're doing the most. So but I haven't been, feeling well just from traveling, and I skipped a couple steps in my personal plan I made for myself. I forgot some vitamins and I forgot to do some prep work before I started traveling, but I have a primary provider now for like the first time in like almost a year and a half, and I feel really solid with her. And there's been a lot of questions in my head, and I've been nervous to go back because part of me, all my favorite doctors keep leaving. So I'm just like, if I go to her and trust her with this information, she's just gonna leave again. So I guess I'm having like abandonment issues. And the point I'm trying to make is that even though I'm a part of that video and I'm speaking about advocating for myself, I needed this space, and I needed to be able to be reminded of why my voice is important. And because that video, I think, was shot back almost a year ago. So I'm just really grateful for my co-panelists and the people that have been writing in the chat box, because it's important that we hold our providers and medical folks accountable, as well as ourselves and each other. So I just want to say thank you.
So we're getting close to the end of time. If there are any last minute questions, I see one question. It sounds like a quick one. Is there any such thing as too high of a CD4 count?
I saw that earlier, and I'm glad that you read that, because I was waiting. Like, if she doesn't, I'm gonna throw it in really quick. No, I'm not a physician, but no, it just means that your immune system is a rock star. Period. Your immune system is off the chain, and right now your soldiers are fighting so hard that nothing can break your walls. So you're awesome. So is your immune system.
1,700 is that you're amazing. 1,700 is amazing. One thing that I have a lot of discussion about in the support group that I facilitate in Hawaii Weekly is really also paying attention to the percentage. So oftentimes, in my experience, you'll get your lab works and they'll give you a number like 1774, and they'll also give you a percentage number, and it'll be like 28%, or it'll be like 38% or whatnot. And that percentage number, if you don't know, it is the ratio of CD4 cells compared to the rest of the white blood cell family in the body. And so that gives you, so sometimes we'll go and get our lab works done and it'll be a stressful day, or we'll have just been getting over a cold or the flu, or we'll have eaten something that was really not something that, settled well with us, and it can affect our numbers. And that's just kind of like those labs are a 5-minute snapshot of what our blood is doing at that time when we're going in there to get the labs. The percentage is an ongoing kind of leveled, averaged out look on what the CD4 numbers are in comparison to the rest of the white blood cell family. So if you feel like your numbers are kind of weird or they're up and down, really kind of look at, ask the doctor, what is my percentage? Because that's going to be helpful to see, like, how stable is my CD4 count. I learned that from research.
Thank you. What is the ideal percentage, or is there one?
Yes, so the ideal percentage from my doctor is 28% and above. And that means that 28% of the white blood cells in my family are CD4 cells.
Cool, good to know. I just learned something new. Thank you so much. Well, we're right at time. I really want to thank again our panelists for being here, for sharing your experiences, your wisdom, everything that you've learned through this journey with the folks who are here and for the folks who will be watching it later. And I also want to encourage anyone who's here who's not already connected with Positive Women's Network USA. I encourage you to join as members. You can do that from our website, pwn-usa.org. You will be getting an email after this that has a link to the survey. Also, when this closes out, it should take you to the survey. It's an evaluation. It's just to give us some really quick feedback on how this was for you and any suggestions you might have. So please, it should only take a couple of minutes. Please, please, please fill that out if you would. And just really appreciate everyone being here. This recording will be up on our website by tomorrow. And there's also a discussion guide that can be used for support groups and events and meetings and so on. So thank you so much again to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who is here, and have a wonderful rest of your day.